Rise and shine, YouTube. Yes, we're back. We're back with a review. It's been a hot minute, but I'm glad we're back and I'm glad we're doing this. Yes, you see all the pads behind me. We got the Pels, we got the Glaze, we even have the Oru, or what, however you say the name. It's basically like a Raiden, and I feel like it's alright. It's alright. But today we're going to take a look at two different glass pads that were sent out to me. We're going to talk about the Superglide V2, and we're going to talk about the Soku Fujin behind me. Compare them, two new glass pads. Are they gas, or should you pass? So, without further ado, let's do what I do. Alright, starting off first, we have the Superglide V2. Now, the V2 is going to give you a different feel than the V1. I feel like the speed is different, the consistency is not as consistent as the V1. And even the speed, I feel like the speed is slightly slower than the V1 Superglide. It is thinner, it is lighter. Does that make the pad feel like a lesser quality? In my opinion, it does, but it also plays into the edging of the pad itself. Like, these edges are very annoying for me just because I use my whole arm on the pad, and if I'm tracking something vertically, I feel every ounce of that edge going downwards, going up. It's just something that I don't like. And even when I do put it on the edge of the desk and it meets there, it makes the edges of the pad stand out even more. So for me, that is definitely a pass. Um, when it comes to the surface feel on the skin, you're still gonna need a sleeve. The sleeve is gonna make it a lot more enjoyable. Your arm will get stick to the pad once it gets a lot hotter outside. But I mean, I don't know. It feels like a grainy matte, right? It's not like my favorite feeling on the skin. It's not like super smooth, where the Fusion on over here is actually a lot smoother on the skin. It feels better. It feels less stickier to the skin once it gets hot. And I just the surface feel versus the Fusion is just different, right? When it comes to the speed on different skates, you got the Vanta Shift, you got stock, and then you got the Jade Airs on the R6. So a faster skate and a 39-gram mouse, those micro tracking movements, those if you're a tack shooter, you're gonna feel them slightly, right? Especially a lighter mouse, faster skate. You're definitely gonna feel. I feel it here with the like trying to micro adjust to a headshot. But if you're somebody who doesn't put a lot of like weight behind it, like for example, I'm heavy handed, so a lot of my hand is on the mouse. I put a little more weight behind it. I feel a lot more of that tugginess between the micro movements than somebody who's just sitting here, not really putting a lot of effort into their grip. They're kind of just very lightly holding the mouse. You don't really feel too much of that tug versus me when I kind of grip the mouse a little harder and I put a little more weight down. I do feel more tug. When it comes to the OP1 AK, right? Same thing with the Jade Airs. The speed wise feels very, very similar. This is a 51-gram mouse now versus the 39, but you still kind of get that same experience because honestly, the skates on the OP1 are pretty damn good. But with that S movement, the abrupt direction changes at the very peak of each curve, you do feel that difference between the start and the stop. But if you're somebody that is in a constant movement, you're not really you're just going with the flow, you're not really changing too many directions, you're not going to really feel that tug. With the Vanta Shift, heavier on the heavier mouse, 55-gram Series 2, the slightly more balanced skate, those micro tugs feel more prominent, and when you get to that abrupt direction change, you're going to feel more tug. You're going to feel more of that stickiness. And to me, since the Series 2 is pretty much my main mouse at the moment, I'm not too fond of that less open feeling than something like the Glaze and even the Soku Fusion we're going to be talking about here in a second. Now to the Hyperlight, being another very light mouse and stock skates. This actually feels pretty open, pretty smooth, pretty quick. But the micro adjustments, once again, you still get that slight tug between going left and right at those very kind of minute movements. Overall, right? So my experience with the Superglide over the past few months, the edges are annoying. The surface isn't as consistent compared to the V1. It's not as smooth as the V1 either. It's thinner, it's lighter. It doesn't really do it to me. So for that like overall experience, I'm gonna have to pass on the Superglide V2 purely because I just one, my performance isn't as good as this as it is on the Soku pad. It is what it is though, right? We all game differently, we all hold our mice differently, we all have different preferences and speeds. This one is just not for me. But I'm very grateful for Pulsar sending this out to me because I did like the V1. Just the V2 is just, in my opinion, it's kind of like a downgrade. But next, we're going to talk about the Soku Fujin. Now, real quick before we go into this, the skates you get with the Pulsar, these guys here, are going to make the Pulsar glass feel slower, a little more tuggier. But if you're about that, go for it. You get free skates. When it comes to the Soku, right, you're going to have a different experience through and through. It's going to have a different feeling on the skin where you don't have that graininess kind of feeling. This is just smooth. It's just smooth as butter. The skin gets stuck less on this pad, right? Especially putting more pressure down and putting a little more friction between the skin and the pad. It doesn't feel like you're going to get stuck up on it like you do on the Superglide V2. The edges are so much better on the Fusion than the Superglide, where if I'm vertically tracking, I don't notice the edges at all. Where with the Superglide V2, it's very annoying. It's just a sharp edge versus a nice rounded edge for me. The bases are going to be very different. Now, where's the Fusion doesn't excel over the Superglide is the base. This guy, if you accidentally tap it or something like that, it's going to move on your desk. Where the Superglide, the base is going to be stuck on the desk. You're going to be good. It's not going to move around. Solid. But overall, like the speed, right? The speed on the Soku is going to be something that if you've used any of the Glassworks pads, it's going to pretty much mimic that speed at a fraction of the price that you're paying for an AI chick on your mouse pad. The artwork on this pad itself is hand drawn by a real artist, and one in person looks great. They could get a little more vibrant with it. In person, it's a little hazy. You won't be able to see it in the camera, but you'll be able to see it in person. But overall, like the artwork looks fantastic. The details in it are nice and crisp. There's a lot of very different details going on with the reflection in the sword, the butterfly on the edge. Just overall, the artwork's fantastic, and kudos to the artist because they did a damn good job on it. When it comes to the speed is very similar to, I mean, all the different skates that I've used, the different mice. It's consistent between skates, it's consistent between speeds, and that's what I like about this pad. The pad, smooth. I mean, the R6 and the Jade Airs is consistent. You don't have that annoying tug back and forth movements. The Hyper Light, you don't really have that tug again with the back and forth movements. The Vanta Shift, you get a slight tug, but it's nothing compared to the Superglide V2. But especially with the S and the direction changes here, it's open, right? The speed is open. It changes nice and smoothly between going left and right. It just feels overall a lot better. Hyperlight between the direction changes. It's open. You don't get a tug. The R6, even the OP1 8K. It's just overall the speed is balanced. The openness is great. The consistency is great. There really isn't much to like critique about this pad except for the backing. That's the only thing they'll need to change on this thing. And you got a top tier pad that isn't $150 like the Glassworks. Now I keep bringing up the Glassworks because of the speed. The speed is pretty much the same thing. You're just getting it at a cheaper price. So once again, shout out to Pulsar and Soku for sending these out. I'm going to give the Soku that gas, and then the Superglide V2 is going to be a pass for me. But other than that, are these going to, take out my number one glass pad, the glaze? No. The glaze is even more open. It's quicker than the Soku and quicker than the Pulsar pad. I do like the artwork on the glaze and pretty much every other glass pad on the market at the moment. It just that style, the ramen shop style art, the smoothness of the pad, the feel of the pad, the openness, the consistency, the speed. It's all in my it's all where it's at. The Soku, right? I honestly think the Soku is going to be my number 2 spot for glass pads. I would put this over the Esport Tiger pads that I've tried, any of the Sky pads, the Superglide, the Superglide V1, any of the TJX exclusive pads. This is just a good balance pad. It's a great balanced speed pad, or it's a great balanced in speed glass pad, right? Consistent, open. If you want a little more slower experience, just pick a more controlled skate. And there you go. So, thank you, Soku, Pulsar, for sending these out. I hope this kind of helps you choose if you're looking between the Soku and the Superglide, or just the Soku between any other pad. I would choose this guy. And just I'm looking forward to all the other glass pads coming out in the future. The Glaze Ultra from the Whale and Loanda. You got few more stuff behind the scenes. You know what I mean? It's gonna be a great time for glass pads coming up in the future. While everybody else is making them, there's only a few that I would recommend. So, GG's. I will talk to you guys later for the next review. The next one's gonna be the AKISTU coming up Saturday. So be there. Love you guys. Rise up. God bless. And we'll see you for the next one. Yeah.